We have Roxana Munoz with us today.
Well, nice to meet you everyone. My name is Roxana Munoz, as Linda just mentioned. I'm one of the co-founders of Reverse Loop. We focus on design and strategy for sustainability, and we are a design firm implementing sustainability strategies. We use design methods from service design, design thinking, product design, and develop basically our products or services that can serve purposes around sustainability as well as circular economy. Well, for us, basically as a company, to live in a world that treats nature more thoughtfully is a gift to future generations, and side by side, to live in a world that consumes more responsibly is a gift to nature. So today I'm here to talk to you about sustainable entrepreneurship, most specifically how you can approach sustainability issues with the projects or the ideas that you may have. So let's start for this, a little icebreaker. If you can tell me, how do you feel when you think about sustainability, if you are familiar with the word, if you have heard about it in the news or anywhere. So do you feel confused, optimistic, curious, overwhelmed, motivated, maybe sad, or any other word that could describe how you feel about it? And you please raise your hand and tell me so I take note.
I don't know exactly how to feel, but I think that now sustainability is very much a buzzword.
Okay.
A lot of people is using it to announce that they are green.
Yes.
Maybe it's not really the case.
Okay. So that will maybe go a bit confused,
Overwhelmed, no?
Overwhelmed? Okay. But do you feel what? Overwhelmed by the information or by the sources, or the use, how people are using the word?
Yes, the use of the concept.
Okay.
Apply to everything, like duct tape, no?
Yes. Well, indeed, that is right, and that is one of the reasons that we will be exploring the meaning of it, and what also the industry are doing now with that. Someone else that want to share how they feel with the word?
I think that I am a little confused.
Okay.
Because really I understand what is sustainability, but you know, it is very interesting that always when we write or prepare some projects, we always need to give some sustainability basement.
Yeah.
And then I always forget, for me it is so difficult to forecast the sustainability of some project tools or something else. And from other hand, I'm feeling curious.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is something so strange.
Someone else? Do you want to share? Okay, well, we will come back to this question at the end and see if your feeling about it has maybe changed. So let's start by defining what is sustainability. So according with the World Commission on Environment and Development, is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the well-being of future generations. So it's basically like that what we do now don't have or have the less negative impact possible for the people that will come to having the place in which we live right now. If we see, this meaning comes from 1987, so it's a quite, let's say, old perspective. And from that we will see a lot more in the policy, the part of sustainable development. That is how the economy of, in terms of government or in terms of cities, of countries, and how the society evolves and develops its practices in a way that can still preserve and hold this well-being of future generations. So in our actual landscape, we are basically short in time and in resources. A fact on that is that the past 30th of July was the Earth Overshoot Day. And the Earth Overshoot Day is the day that marks the date when humanity demand for ecological resources and services in a given year exceeds what Earth can regenerate in that year by itself, like by nature cycle, basically. And therefore, we as society, and well, as business creators, entrepreneurs, we need to be able to change and adapt for start consuming within the Earth ecological limits. And that's why sustainability has become so buzzword, how it has become so into part into every business idea. There are 3 elements into sustainability that are the main to consider, that are basically the environment, the society, and the economy. The environment being the interdependence of living system and all our finite and natural resources. The society regards the relationships between human institutions, systems, and collective decision making. And the economy, the flow of human capital and human-made resources, as well as the parameters that we have to measure productivity. So it's all what humans do to survive, to generate economic activity, to come with ideas, and to have economic growth. So in sustainability, we basically need to manage to have a balance of these 3 elements so that for economic growth, we are not putting in risk our environment and we are not going against society. Then we will see in the middle the balance of it. When we look in those 3 elements, we have in the human interactions all what regards cities and households, all the wealth and poverty, the education, the health. And in the environment is basically the natural capital, considering well, the air we breathe, the soil that we have, in this case, the land that we use in agriculture, the water we drink, and the energy we consume, and how we power our activities. And in the economy, it comes more to growth, profit, production, consumption, and efficiency, specifically to how the work and the labor will be directed to create economic resources. And so the way these 3 elements will move around environment, that is from where we take all our resources, will be based on having environmental quality. So because we have a good soil, we can have good food. So our basic needs will be covered, also including the water we drink, including the air we breathe, and again the energy. And this is directly connected as well as the healthcare. Like if our environment is good, the levels of health are also better. And regards the economic growth, well, we will be that the need for sustainable solutions is increasing much more because we see as also the need of good utilization of resources. And so from those 3 parts of society, environment, and economy, we will look at one framework that is the 3 Ps, that is people, planet, and profit. And in the 3 Ps, the people will look into the quality of life, the unemployment rate, the income, which is the average income in the place where you live, the education, the life expectancy, and basically how the people can live in good conditions. In the planet, we come again to all aspects of the environment, including also the land use, the toxic waste, and how we use the natural resources in a way that there is the chance for them to regenerate. Example, with the forest and the trees, right? It is possible that you need wood and that you can cut it, but you need to do it in a way that is controlled and it respects certain ecological limits, that you can then have new plantation and that there is enough time to grow, and all of that mostly goes into like policy making that will control what happens in the environment. And then in the economy and the profit, it is the money flow, the profit, the employment, as well as the business diversity, the company growth. This will involve how much the government will support into new businesses, which kind of businesses they promote, which kind of businesses they help to grow. And then there are different frameworks for sustainability, where basically you measure the performance of the organization, not just by their profit. You do it considering the environmental and social dimensions, along with the economical. And other part that will be important is like you don't look just to the stakeholders, and you don't look just to the shareholders, you look to the stakeholders. So the shareholders will be basically the investors or the part that have like more money. And when you switch from shareholders to stakeholders, you look at the business or the ideas as a whole, or in a more holistic way, because then there is all the consumers and each person that influences like your business happening, from the person that provides you the paper for printing your documents till the person that delivers, if you have a product, the product you are giving to someone. The most common frameworks in sustainability are this. So we start for the TBL, or the triple bottom line. That is exactly the same as the 3 Ps, the people, planet, and profit. If we go back to the people, planet, and profit, we can see that it's a bit more, it's more specific, or it goes into things that have more social impact. You can measure them according with how people can react to it. In differentiation, for example, with the ESG, that is a more established from the policy part, that is environmental, social, and governance. So in the ESG, the environmental is regards climate change, resources management. The social is about human rights, working conditions, and employee relations. And the governance is about executive pay, board membership, and diversity and inclusion. So the ESG goes more into, let's say, a big organization or organizations that want to start having a transition towards sustainability, but that maybe initially they didn't have. So they start having regulations and things that are more in a big scale. The 3 Ps are the ones that are easier, for example, for startups, or not easy, like they are adequate for that, to start working with that.
For this TBL, is like certification?
No, it is ways that you measure. There are certifications in sustainability, but let's say they can measure into this, or this. So let's say when you talk about sustainability, or doing your sustainability strategy, you can choose one of them. This one is the one that I found more helpful, that I will go into detail in the next one. But you will approach sustainability looking into that, like, well, which is the one that I can tackle? Do I want to go to the people? Do I want to go to the planet? Do I want to go to the profit? And so here you start kind of like to narrowing it. So this is much more specialized, because then you will go in the part of with governance of taxes, and all what will be like green taxation, and all of that will get into. So usually this one will go more in a like big company level, while this one can be, at least I see it as it's more easy to approach and more, let's say, friendly to start. And when you will measure, maybe look for certifications, probably this will be your initial strategy to start working it. And so we have the SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, that there are 17, and the SDGs are the world suggested best plan to build a better world for people and our planet by 2030. So the number 1 is no poverty, and is the main and like the one that is, let's say, in the head of the world leaders. That the idea is like this other, what they do is support that by 2030 there is no poverty in our world. So as I was telling you before, how you approach sustainability with a business idea, this is the one that I found, the one that gives you more flexibility, and as well that it can be less overwhelming, because you can choose one, or you can choose 2, or you say, well, I have this idea and I want to commit with gender equality, which means that in your, let's say, politics within your organization, you will be paying attention to that, and it will be one of your values. So that is one of the things. That the SDGs, I see them more that is possible to work it as values of the company. As well, that is, you have like sustainable cities and communities, or I will give an example from my personal experience. For example, I do work a lot with responsible consumption and production. that is the SDG number 12, and I do, from Reverse Loop, I collaborate with companies to develop products and to have ideas that are responsible in how they produce and how they consume resources.
But this, again, you need a certification to claim that you are doing this?
You don't need a certification for that. You can...
You are mentioned that this what you are doing, or the role that you are taking?
What I do in my work with this one? Yeah. No, it's just the way I commit and I stand for that. I don't have right now the certification, but I do help companies to get certifications when their sustainability strategy is based on responsible consumption and production.
For example, if I would like to interest about your entrepreneurships and your company, where I can find these principles in your homepage or your some documents or.
In mine, apply to you. In mine, because I sell more, for example, in my case, it's more in consulting base. Yes. So I do have, as a person, like I have commitment with that. I'm gonna have my clients. I do explain them that is what I do. I do work mostly with physical product, mostly like textile industry, and now also in sports goods. But as is highly based in consumer, we just make sure that all the elements of in this case, the supply chain that we have and where we source materials, it's complaining with this, so they are aligned. But there is no certification specifically for each goal. You can choose to tackle certain goals.
But so, if I would like to put in my website that I'm I don't know if following is the correct word, but that I'm trying to attack the goal number 1 or 3 or something, I can put it.
You can put it. It's completely free to do it. It's completely free to talk about it. If you go to the website and you put in Google Sustainable Development Goals, you will get all the information, all the images, the icons, for you to share it freely.
Okay.
If you wanna
have a letter from.
No. This is something completely open to everyone. Okay. And if you just Google that, it appears. It also plays like it shows all the examples and how you can work with each goal. And it's really common that, for example, by touching one goal, you manage to affect others. For example, if I do work with responsible consumption, I know that I'm taking climate action, I'm taking care of the life below water, I'm taking care of the life on land.
Roxana, I have one question. How do you think it's work in Latvia, for example?
If this works in Latvia?
Yeah.
I do think that it does. Because, well, the responsible consumption and production is possible. And talking about my goal, but I see that Latvia also, because of the size that it has, like maybe I see that the things are not fully like out of control, so that will allow to, let's say, to start in an early stage without there is no point of attack. So while maybe other countries, they are too much into unsustainability, I think that here there is a huge potential, as well as all the part of collaborations or things that are more in a local context that I will share after, like it's mostly at the end of the presentation, but when you keep locally, that also supports a lot of like the growth. I'm not sure how cultural, for example, go the part of when you come up for decent work and that, but I think it's something that here it's really possible to work. Only things like there are certain countries that maybe having already more into the plan, but I have seen that here there is already like activation of circular economy and campaigns more, for example, the Zero Waste Latvia that I have seen, and they tackle a lot of these ones, the climate action, the life online below water, and then it comes all. This one is one of what is more used for countries that are in development. The seventh thing, that is the partnership to achieve the goals. Because, well, it works that many times you create agreements with countries from the global south and the global north to have a bigger commerce. So you support the development of countries of the global south, for example. And the general parts are like, say, way that you can make little groups of the 17 is ones that are more focused on people, where it comes human rights, it comes like education, the parts that are on planet, that is more how you take off the natural resources and the life, the part of prosperity, that is a lot into the no poverty and how there is a equal distribution of the resources, considering that let's say if there is no sustainability or there is no development on it, what we see that could happen in the future is like the middle class will grow, and then the demand for the products that are unsustainable will keep growing, and then there will not be like full control. That come basically as example of cars that will keep growing, and all the things that are more petroleum based. That is one of the biggest agents of contamination. Then we have the peace, that the peace comes also more integration into a global south and a global north. The concepts of global south of global north are the countries that maybe have a higher economic power, and the ones that have a lower economic power or more poverty into it. So with the peace, let's say you keep and start distributing and balancing more the resources. And then the part of the partnerships will be mostly aligned with peace. So basically, in which is the current context of society, we follow mostly a linear economy. The linear economy comes from the capitalism, and it's a model that, given its massive production and consumption, have started testing the ecological limits of the planet that we inhabit, and it compromises the stability of our future, and therefore it is unsustainable. That's why we see that it's growing all the things around circular economy, about many people sitting recycling. Even here you have seen that I think the RIMI and the Maxima now have these points where you can go and recycle. And then the facts that show this unsustainability is like the overexploitation, that is a result of economic and demographic growth. Population is growing, resources are going down, so we are having less. As well as a market failure. There is a market failure because there are hidden environmental costs. So mostly in people that work with consumer products, they are not considering when they do the cost all the part that the water that goes dirt into the river again. So that is a cost that should be considered for the moment they are asking a price for it. There is no. So that is considered a market failure, at least well in the economics and in sustainable development. As well as the depletion, waste, and pollution. And this is mainly because since the Industrial Revolution, that well, it's already a long time ago, we have kept this model of single-use lifestyle, and is what our economy promotes and what we have seen that grows. So I use a pen, a marker, and when it's ended, I throw it. But well, what happened with the material, where it goes, how it longs take to degrade, well, so all of that has been affecting them. In a certain way, let's say it's time to recognize that there is a mistake in that, because the technical advance haven't considered that, and now the need has become like urgent to cover. And so what I want to share with you is like every action has an impact, positive or negative, as individuals, as society, as businesses, as entrepreneurs. Everything you decide will have an impact, and you can change or do it in a more wisely way. So in this we have facts like we are consuming resources 50% faster that they can be replaced. That by 2030 our demand will require more than 2 planets, and that 5 planets by 2050 if we continue in the same pace. And for example, just in Europe, 46% of edible fruits and vegetables go to waste, maybe because they are, I don't know, a bit more ripe than usual, or because people don't use it, so it goes to trash. And 60% of office space in Europe is not used during office hours. What it ends being that there is energy running that is not being used. There is also space in terms of, well, what you can build maybe for other people that are needing housing. So this is how we are not making a best use of what we have. And so looking into entrepreneurs and new business ideas can make a difference. And right now it's also something that is being highly supported by government and by different funds that maybe you will have the chance to learn after in another talk. And then the common sustainable objectives are usually saving energy, developing green products or services, and retaining and motivating employees. This is one that I want to highlight because many times people focus sustainability always hearing the buzzword in that it's just doing green or not planting trees, and now the way you care of the people that you have in your company, it's also something that applies to sustainability, just in a social aspect. So sustainable practices will include like opt for alternatives in your business operations. That means that maybe you source your energy from a sustainable, maybe you have a solar panels in the building or in your offices, that is a way. And that climate change is a part of your risk management as well as your investment. It can be that you have an investment fund dedicated to sustainable initiatives. That also counts. Reduce waste and the use of natural resources. I think the most common that we see in this is the use of paper in offices. I'm trying to give you like a small example for kind of you to understand it. And also have the R&D for sustainable products and capturing new markets. That is an important fact into it, that either if it's a physical product or a service, just the fact that you are digging into sustainability is kind of opening markets and it's being something that grows. I'll give you a personal example. I do develop sports goods for a Belgium-based brand. And one of the things that we have or that I follow in the strategy is that we just produce in Europe. Sports goods, it's something that, let's say, Asia has a really high technicality and has, like they developed really good. And it's really hard for me to find manufacturers or suppliers in Europe. So it is a huge research to try to find them, but once you find them, for example, a short time ago I found one, it was in Eastern Europe, and as he can develop with the values that I have of sustainability and ensuring, plus it's reducing my carbon footprint from transportation and all of that. So I will keep giving him more work. So any new R&D that I do have, I will try to develop it with him. So as he complained with a sustainability factor, now he had the opportunity to keep an ongoing business, in this case with this brand that I collaborate with. We also have the communicate and discuss the sustainable practices as part of your reputation. And this applies to both your consumers, clients, as well as your people, the team with which you are, and how you kind of, let's say, raise awareness into the sustainability matters. And reduce pollution and CO2 from your operations, both if it's the operation of your office, your basic things where you order stuff, or if you have a product that have a high CO2 footprint, how can you reduce it? This is a basic example of a supermarket, and that well applies as a transition to sustainability. This is the Remy from the Alpha. Right now, being Remy a well-established company and a big company, they are approaching sustainability in this case with a business diversification. So they are including in their household products, actually one of the products that is more known for its toxicity, if it's not a green product. They have soaps, and they have started offering alternative to plastic packaging, selling bulk and using refill systems, as well as inform people about sustainability. So this action that for such a huge company, well, it could have a really big impact, but it also has a big impact in the consumers. Because now people get introduced to, well, there is a different way of shopping that, well, I can now refill my soap instead of buying a new. And it's also a way of just sharing and creating an identity of a sustainable company.
But do they have like tax incentives or discounts or something for do this?
No.
No, I don't think so. No.
No. Not that I know. But And so here I'm sharing with you 18 domains for you to take action, where you can look at from the operational, product, or experiential part. So in the operational, you can look into how you use water, waste, infrastructure, procurement, travel. If you have to travel once a week, maybe you reduce the Y or you take the train, for example, instead of taking plane. This is an example, I think it's in France, that they have banned the flights, the national flights that are less than 2 hours because of the carbon footprint of it. Well, they also have infrastructure for you to go by train easy, but that's something that goes into what the country invests. We have the supply chain, the materials, the packaging, the retail, the customer use, the end of life, and then the experiential, we have more the direction, the space, the consumables, what you use, the communication, how you show to people, the engagement, and the journey in general, how you evolve through all of it. These ones, after you can maybe have a picture, or but I think you can have the PDF. And then looking into the business models, let's say in the traditional business model that will have a purely business focus. We have the economic viability based on achieving profit. We have the efficiency that will be based on minimizing costs. Then we have the financial viability that is based on creating money value. And then we have the productivity in maximizing the output per unit of input, which is basically purely business focus. That doesn't mean that you can have a business focus having a sustainable initiative. But when you start focusing on sustainability, you will have practices that consider corporate, social, and environmental responsibility. You will consider stakeholders, as I share here, and not only the shareholders. You will start having targets that translate as well environmental and social policy. So you will look into which are the policies in the place that you are that are supporting this. And you will be reviewing and measure the impact of your business on society and the environment. So it will be really important at the end, always measure. Measuring sustainability, it's quite subjective. And you will find tons of articles, certifications, people talking. There are some specifically. The more specific ones are the frameworks that I share. But they don't measure like rating you in a number. And even the ones that rate you and that have established like indicators are subjective. How subjective they are. For example, I used to collaborate with a company and we will do like analysis of companies and their sustainability. You will find that they will have in their statement and sharing the communication, well, we are working with employment and we are collaborating with this foundation that have this amount of these people that have I don't know, social travel, they're in inclusion, and so it will sound like something really good. But it was a project, and that project maybe was alive for 1 month. But that will be considered many times in that measurement. That really will go into what is now known as greenwashing, that it can come here with the buzzword. Because yes, you did tackle and you contributed and collaborate, but it's not part of your ongoing activity that you're all the time collaborating with that. So I think that is one of the main reasons what the measuring is. It can be subjective, but it's important to measure, like it's by yourself and within your internal and organizational activity. How much progress you have, how much you have reduced, let's say, your consumption, your carbon footprint, how are supporting you society, your employees, how happy they are. All that part will be like what maybe you should focus initially, or what I think is the best.
About circular economy.
Yeah.
A friend asked me, I didn't know what to answer. Is Tetra Pak considered circular economy?
Well, you can recycle, but there is a long process in recycle. So in the recycling, there is also which are the resources that takes the recycling process.
No, but because of the reuse of the package.
Okay, if that makes it circular. I don't know. There are mostly in the circular economy is a whole universe. It comes more like the more effective way is that you design the things to be circular from the beginning, so you will already know. If you design your Tetra Pak and you already know exactly which will be what you will do before, even if it's reused, then it can apply as circular, but you will need to know how sustainable it is, how much energy it takes to recycle it, how it is to collect all the packaging. So all of that will need to be measured to say, well, it is sustainable. Because that you recycle, for example, doesn't mean that you're necessarily sustainable. Because it takes a lot of energy and like resources to do the kind of processes. And for that is like in the circular economy, the design out of waste is so important because you will immediately think, well, maybe I will don't use this cover plastic on the Tetra Pak and I will have a water-based ink on just the cardboard because the process then for recycling, it will be easier. In the design out of waste, the materials that you use is what plays like the most important part when you talk about physical products. And then I told you about the linear economy. And the linear economy, you will mostly hear that it comes from the take, make, waste, or make, use, and dispose. And it's basically that you take resources from nature, or even if you are reusing that, you make something, you use it, and then you just throw it away. But what happened with that product that ended on landfill? Because then as we go, we mostly will end up like living maybe in middle of trash if there is nothing that is done with those products. For example, just Latvia, I think it has a lot of textile waste that actually comes from the UK. And even if there are a lot of second-hand shops and they try to do something about it, well, it is still a lot. So, and the repurposing is hard. There comes where the recycling, for example, it is not enough. Because recycle, in this case, the example with the textiles, if you have two different fibers, it's already really hard. It consumes a lot of energy. It has a lot of toxic waste. So all of that need to be considered in the process. And that's why the movement from linear to circular is what we see, let's say, as the thing that is rising and rising. And well, I do believe personally that is actually how things should work. But companies need to commit that you design from the beginning, knowing what will happen with that product. In the circular economy, there are many approaches. You have both, like you can recycle, that you can reuse. You also have like extended life. You have also the services, where you move from product to service, so it becomes a part of the renting. You also have the IoT, that is that you like the obsolescence that you have already in mind, that you have programmed. It has a lot of like ethic involved, but if in the moment that the person designed it, know what will happen with that product once the life that was designed for ends, so it goes into the cycle. Not necessarily needs to be also a full closed loop. It can be that resources end to be used in a different industry, for example. So let's say the loop there will go out, but you keep all the things moving and you ensure that it will not just go as waste on landfill.
Sorry, just one question about this, because you were telling about repurposing.
Yeah.
This will include, because you were telling before about the people, like when you are retraining someone to do something else or something more about what they were working before, it counts like... I'm going to give you the concrete...
yeah, give me this, yeah.
One of my friends is having a startup where he is repurposing forklifts.
Yeah.
To make them automatized. So it's like robots. So these forklifts are working now automatically, but also they need for certain, not for everything, but for certain operations, they don't need, they need a driver. But the driver, instead of driving the forklift, the machine,
Yeah.
they are with a planchette, and they are driving the forklift in distance and in this electronical way in another location. And most of these drivers are very old people that used to be drivers like 40 years, and now they are retraining them to be like drone drivers for the trucks.
Okay.
So, but I don't know if all this could enter in, could be called like
That will don't really enter into circular, but it has you are caring for the society, and we are kind of reactivating economic activity in a population that maybe has been more inactive. So it is a purpose that goes into sustainable development, and that you are contributing to that. No, I think the circular goes more into what creates like a waste product, or that pollutes, or more on this like external into our environment, not necessarily in people. At least now in my knowledge, but it's really nice anyways what they're doing. Well, getting started is in case of for you and for your projects or ideas that you have. My invitation is more to think on how sustainability can add value to your current business activity. This will be really important, and is the add value. But for you as a business, and let's say for if you will look more into the support from government of investment, all of this, as well as how it can add value to your consumer, of the people to who you serve. Because in the moment you add value to them, so your business will keep growing because they will stay with you and they will want to continue collaborations. And well, how they can benefit from it, and also think if you can identify the areas of your business with a higher potential to work for sustainability. Maybe not all of it, maybe there is something specific that you think, as in this case what you are saying, they are activating a population that is not active anymore. That is a way that they are assessing that. Or how you can start looking and give it to a new focus. So many times it is really important, let's say, to take your business idea or your current business and just look at all the ecosystem on it. Well, we call it as a stakeholder ecosystem. I can share a template of a math for do it. And then you just start identifying, what can I do? It doesn't need to be something huge, it can be something small. Maybe you have collaboration, or you create partnerships with people that are in a local context, and that will help it as well growth. And so for this, yes, you need to consider that every company has an operational impact, that it was more what I was talking about, let's say the electricity of the office you use, of the sources you consume in basic daily activity, and that this is independent from what you are offering. And then this is, let's say, like the four, not steps necessarily, but the four factors that you have in a business case for sustainability, or why you will look into, well, this is something interesting for me, or this is within what I can do, or I'm interested, that is the opportunity. In the opportunity, and is the most important for any business, is that the size of the green and sustainable market is close to 8.7 billion at an accumulative growth of about 2.7%, 27.1%, sorry. So there is a huge opportunity for you to develop, grow, and get visibility, get support, and come up with an idea that can thrive in our current society and in our current context. Then we have innovation that comes a lot with your capability to develop competitive skills in the market. Maybe you manage to highlight just because you use a sustainable material, or just because you give to the person the option to rent and not just to buy. So those are as well ways. And then the value to your stakeholders that, well, given the increase in demand, now most of the companies are reporting their sustainability. We see this mostly in the big companies. If you go to the RIMI website, they will show you there their sustainability progress and, well, literally how, like, say, by the year, which are all the goals. They explain all the things that they have been developing. And this comes from the demand of the people, because people want to know, and transparency, it's a really important thing here. Transparency from the company to say how they do the stuff. And so, let's say if there is transparency, for example, the buzzword starts clarifying. And then their brand value and reputation, that it gives you international recognition and new business opportunities. So the question that it would be like kind of for all of you watching and listening here is how might we, this is a question that we, let's say in design strategies you always use, is like how might we? How might you take certain action, develop a new product, tackle into sustainability, make a change, or even, well, I know, find new partners? All of this we'll consider. And how might we, in this case, apply sustainable practices to our business? You will have this is a business model canvas that is adapted to, let's say, a sustainability and circular economy model. The difference with the regular comes basically in the value proposition part. That is that sustainability will be part of your value proposition. Other part will be that how you will have the channels and which are the parts that will impact. You will also maybe include more the sustainability approach to it, as well as in the costs, because then it will be important that you consider the real cost of the impact or what you do, and in the revenue as well. This one, it will be for sure for you the file, so you can fill it, and, well, there will be the description for everything. And so I wanted to share this specifically because I found it one of the greatest enablers of sustainability, mostly also in startups and small businesses and economies that are in a growing process, as for example is the Latvian economy. That is, the collaboration is an enabler of sustainability, as well as of circular economy. And in collaboration with mutually desired objectives, businesses can improve efficiency and effectiveness across their operations. So may you collaborate with the one that already recycles something, or maybe if you are on a restaurant, you already collaborate with the people that do, which is the name of the people, the agricultural people, and what they need to grow their things. Or maybe you already establish agreements with the people that works in agriculture, so the demand of what you are growing, it is already covered or even sold. For in this case, the restaurant. These are just basic ideas that work in these collaboration models. And a case of business innovation, being a really big company, I just wanted to bring it because it was like the biogas was one of the things that they came out with through a collaboration that had a really huge and positive impact into the community. And so Nestlé partnered with local farmers to open Switzerland's largest agricultural biogas plant, with which they will power their activity. And they will help the farmers to have a positive impact into what they will have for the manure. So they will be able to grow and have everything with the support of the big company. But if you see, they are affecting, like, the benefit is not for another huge company, it's for the local community. And then they support all the local environmental projects. And having these kind of things, let's say more activity around environmental projects will flourish in the area. So, and now, how do you feel when you think about sustainability again? Inspired, confused, positive, excited, curious, overwhelmed, motivated, sad? Well, I say sad because sometimes people feel, you know, sad for the whole situation, but, or other. How do you feel? You want to share?
I think I would like to say motivated because
Wow, this is good.
With some ideas, that I will try to talk with my team. But it's really an eye-opener.
Well, look how nice. You move from buzzword and overwhelming to motivated. Okay. Someone else wants
I
to?
say that I feel inspired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is also positive.
You know, I think about our organization. I never think about sustainability as a strategy, maybe, or organization. But now I understand it is possible to look in this sustainability
To look into that.
in organization.
I think you asked me about how I see it in Latvia. I think, well, I do observe that because I'm originally from Colombia. I have work and live in Portugal and in Spain. And I feel that in Latvia there is still a lot of like the local growth, and people have it also willing for the good. Also maybe for their relationship with nature. This is just what I observe as a person, because I do like to observe like behavior like patterns into society. And I see that there is a good reaction to sustainable practice, maybe just more from young generations, but I think that slowly can kind of go through and more people have a higher interest. So that is definitely something too. And well, global problems require local actions and solutions. So whether if your projects or ideas are for in a local context or an international context, I think it's always good and to start in a local way. And also like the things like the pandemic and what happened with the COVID has bring back all of this in many cases for like the shortage in the supply chain and many things that doing overseas is starting to be done. Given the rising on prices and in transportation, so it's a great opportunity as well as, and if you have that as society, I believe that there is a society truly committed to sustainability, not just from the government, just like the individuals that are part of the society, that will really allow a truly successful sustainable development, and that will bring the economy to a growth that is sustainable, that is successful, and that is both good for the planet and the people. And well, thank you. This is my email. If any of you maybe want to write me or have a question or something that would like to talk, I do like a lot the subject. I'm really would like to give you advice if you need or anything question. And now, if you wanna make any question or thing that wanna add, now is the time for questions. Or if you wanna look into apply it to your specific idea or wanna share about your idea. Well, you were talking about the part of the blockchain that I think it's highly used in sustainable initiatives.
One of the things that I was told that will be very, very useful for the airline industry is because of the regulations that are coming into place for emissions, that they will need a way how to track and count emissions, particles emissions.
Well, that is definitely one of them. And I think all what is in the measurement part, or in the development of technologies to measure it, it's a really good area to go and create business. Mm-hmm. Also in the aviation part, well, is one of the higher industries that has like the CO2 emissions. So that will definitely be
and
be
noise.
something.
They are also very worried about noise levels.
Oh, the noise levels that they are generating. Mm-hmm. Well, that's also something. Yeah. If you are you're more in the tech part, like with engineering. If I got the idea, so that is definitely let's say a good field to work all of that. Anyone else maybe?
Yes, I have a question. I think it's easy to see how easy, but it's maybe more obvious how you can apply these principles of sustainability and circular economy when you produce or when you make a product, but how it's in the service industry. If you have a certain service that happens a lot, that you see it more in the product for the use of resources.
But in the service industry, it comes a lot more from the sharing, how you have more this sense of community within your service. It's a great enabler of sustainable practices. I think it's the one that I have seen more, and it's like seeing results more shown to have. Companies that have or sharing economy within what they do, or they have more like initiatives, or they have investment into sustainable practices. It's also one of the things that in investments of the company go to that area. And in communication.
Would you say that a sustainability, let's say, strategy or approach in a service provider could be also employing or involving vulnerable groups?
Yeah, it's definitely, because it's part of, you're generating employment. It's like social justice in a way, so that will be all the part of inclusion goes into sustainability, like minority groups are also part of it. Also, like if you do education or training people into it, it's part of it, and that you stand by, maybe you say, well, I'm really committed to spread this message, I will educate my team and my people to know it. That is also a strategy that a service-based company can apply.
Okay. Thank you very much.